Welcome to Re-Envision, the podcast where we embrace change as one of life's most profound rhythms. I'm your host, Bédard, and change is my playground. Curiosity is the signature vibe. Joy, love, magic, and freedom are the frequencies I move with. Courage is the embodied state, and duality is my jam. I love to reveal light and darkness, permanence and impermanence, equanimity and chaos, oneness and distinctiveness. Here we have full permission to be ourselves, to explore, to dream, to discover. We'll tap into the wisdom that has always been within as we navigate change with simplicity, lightness, and fluidity. Open to new understandings, new perspectives, and even greater potentialities. So whether you're seeking inspiration, empowerment, or simply a space to reflect and contemplate, you're in the right place. Let's get started.
Hello. Good morning for those of you that are in North America, and good afternoon for those of you that are in the afternoon in Europe or anywhere else in the world where it's morning or afternoon or night. I am Mehiev, and I'm so glad to be here with you this morning. As you can see, I tan very well. For the past 2 weeks and a half have been such a joy to bathe in the sun and sit by the pool, or go to the beach, or go to surf. I decided that this year, I did surfing about 14 years ago when I was in the Maldives. But it was like, I don't even think that we got into the wave. It was more like a lesson on the sand. And at that time, I was working in the Maldives as a scuba diving instructor and a biologist. So I was really, really embodying being underwater and having this one commune with the sea. And what was really special about the Maldives is because the Maldives is drift diving all the time. So, and I think it's a really nice lesson. I'm going to take some time to tell you that this morning. So drift diving, usually when you actually go and dive, there is like a point of entry, and then you go around, and then you come back to the point of exit, which is the same one. Drift diving is basically because there's too much current for it to be logical energetically to drop, go around, and come back, because basically like you're going to be losing so much energy and using so much of your air navigating in the water. So what drift diving is, the boat drops you somewhere upstream of the current, and then you go down, and then you actually drift with the direction of the current, and then you pop back up and the boat picks you up. And I think it's interesting because it's a good way of really envisioning how much sometimes, like, if we were determined to do something in a certain way and we're not paying attention to how the conditions were, we would really, really lose a lot of energy. And this is what I wanted to talk to you about. Instead of going against the grain, against the current, how about we actually are invited to really go with the current, with the grain, with the flow, with what comes naturally for us. And so just to finish my story, but I think I was not ready for the surfing part, I don't think that my brain was ready to really like observe, because I was just at the moment where I was observing like the pulsations of and the rhythms and the cycles, and to integrate this in my life. So this year, I decided before I came to Mexico, my husband asked me, he said, "Are you going to dive while you're in Mexico?" I said, "I have no desire to dive. I haven't been diving for like a decade now." I was complete with diving. We had a store. I taught diving at all level, from open water to dive master for, a long time. And then we were renewing, and I was not getting back in the water. And then one day I decided to just let go of my certification as an instructor. So sometimes, and my husband wasn't understanding this, and a lot of people were not understanding this. And I was like, I'm complete with diving. And I was like, it doesn't mean that I won't go back in the underwater. But I find so much joy in snorkeling, like there's so much freedom. There's so much lightness. You just have your mask, your snorkel, and your fins, and you just free dive down, and you can actually stay there. You can take pictures. Like I have like this capacity of doing this in a way that is much more freedom. So when my husband asked me, "Are you going to dive or going to snorkel?" I said, like, I actually want to surf. Usually, I'm currently in Puerto Vallarta in Mexico. Usually, people go to Sayulita to learn how to surf, but there's a nice place here in Puerto Vallarta that teaches surf. It's less far, and we go to Nuevo Vallarta to surf. And I did 2 days, and tomorrow I'm going for my third day. And this has been such an incredible new experience of communing with the sea, with the waves, and learning in yet another way, how to trust our feeling, how to build on your experience, how to really read how the sea is coming at you and how the waves are coming at you, as well as reading how you're moving on the board, how you're adjusting on the board, how you're course correcting on the board. I'm so glad to be sharing this with you today. I wanted to create a membership for such a long time, but it didn't feel like the right time. And then at the end of 2023, I felt in my being that it was time for me to create a membership. And I was creating the membership whether there was people in it or not. And that is the interesting part about how I've learned to function in this world. So often we wait for other people to join us before we go. We wait for an exterior thing to validate us to go. And this year I had decided that it wasn't the case, that I was creating the foundation of this membership, one, and I was starting in it as I'm speaking my voice, as I'm speaking my truth. I would share this, and I would call women beings, souls that feel aligned with what I'm saying. And as I am today, that's why I'm coming at you in my, very down south vibe, as vulnerable as I can be, because I think that that is the way that you will be connected with this, that you will be connected with what I have to give and what you have to give and what we have to create. And when I say have to, it's not a should, it's not a have, it's what we have in ourselves to bring to the table. So I'm creating this wonderful space, and I'm creating the structure, the foundation. And as women come in, as beings come in, as souls come in, it gets to be eco-creation. It gets to be a place that is so sacred, so pure, so amazing that we invest in it, and we invest in ourselves. And it gets to be this place where we're receiving and we're giving very freely. So, at first when we start to walk into coaching spaces or mentoring spaces, we walk into those spaces with an agenda. We go in and we say, like, I want to get this out of like this or that or that. And it becomes this expectation. It becomes this I put in and I want back. It's very transactional instead of very flowing. It's very commuting when we actually come into those spacing and trusting that we will get everything that we are meant to get, that we will receive everything that we're meant to receive, that we will have our needs, wants, desire completed. And it's even more important to really be invested in another way when it's a co-creating state. So today I'm going to invite you to really think about that and sit with that thought. Sit with the fact that you are meant to be here because you were called to be here with me. You were called to answer the invitation, and you were called to really create something that you have not created in any other way or any other places before. And I'm going to invite you to notice how it feels in your body. What is your experience of my words? What is your experience of this perspective? And it's not a judgment. It's just a noticing. I'm going to invite you to take one deep breath with your shoulders and let them sink in the back. Release all the tension in your back. Lengthen your spine. Another deep breath and roll your shoulders back. Release the tension in the shoulders and the neck. And one last one. And relax. When I created this space, it was very clear in my mind that it was going to be a place where we could really stepping into experiences and changing how we experience our life in a free way, with more freedom, with more awareness, with more consciousness, with more love, more light. And how do we use those new experiences, those new way of bringing our consciousness forward and our awareness forward to really change the circle that we're in? And I have been reading, I actually brought with me the two first books of Conversation with God with me. And for those of you who have read it, you actually are going to probably remember. For those of you who have not read it, it doesn't matter. I encourage you to read them if a spiritual path is something that you're wanting to explore. But at the same time, if you're really looking for new avenues, new ideas, new way of like conceiving the world, or that you feel there's something inside that is not aligned with how the world works as it is, it might be a very interesting way of changing your perspective or having new perspective and then decided if this is for you or not. But I was reading in the pool a few days ago, the book one. I'm actually in the book two. Yesterday I started book two, but there's actually a quote that I wrote that is very, very in line with what I wanted to create here. And I'm going to read it to you. The soul conceives, the mind creates, the body experiences. The circle is complete. The soul then knows itself in its own experience. If it does not like what it is experiencing, feeling, or wishes a different experience for any reason, it simply conceives of a new experience of self and quite literally changes its mind. Conceive, create, experience. What you conceive, you create. What you create, you experience. What you experience, you conceive. I've been talking so much about this, so much about the fact that what I create, the spaces that I created, the way that I live my life is about experiencing and noticing in my body what this experience is. And if I choose to deepen it, and if I choose to continue, or if I want another one. And it's not because I'm categorizing in good or bad experiences and this dichotomy. I'm just choosing what my soul is called to do, because our souls are actually here for a purpose. They're here for a mission. They're here for something to experience in the human experience, right? And so much of us have been spending our own life focusing on what the mind creates, and this, how it actually transfers in our body, in our experiences. And then we take those experiences and we take it back in our mind. And then it goes from here to there and here to there. But the thing is, at the base, and this is something that is very interesting, when we're looking at scientific studies, we're scientists, we have to pause hypotheses. And when we design scientific studies, we have to pause those hypotheses that may or may not be true, but everything is actually built on that. And this is something that we don't talk about when we're saying like, oh, like science has proven that. Well, first, science doesn't prove anything. Science demonstrates something. But also we tend to forget that the design of the experience is based on our hypothesis. It's based on a thought, on a belief, on something that we want to see if it's statistically significant or not. So it goes from thoughts, belief, in our mind, and then it goes to feeling, and then it creates a body memory, and then we're developing behaviors that become automatic, and then it auto feeds, and we really stay into that mindset. And this is how the human works. This is how our mind and body are actually connected. And a lot of times, which is interesting, I read very recently, but this is something that I've known for a long time. There was a study that demonstrated that the brain, so our mind, relies more on internal prediction than direct visual input when they're observing an event in a predictable sequence. So what does it mean? It means that there's a buildup of thoughts, beliefs, feeding the feelings, feeding the body memories, and feeding the automatic behavior. And this loop, this auto-feeding loop, as it reinforces itself, becomes less reliable in a situation, less reliable on the actual event and our reaction to the actual event than to our past experiences and body memories. So if I put this in other words, there's a real shift in the information flow that comes from our premotor, from our interaction with the world, to visual regions of the brain that we actually it indicates that we're more reacting on a predictive reaction than an actual reactive perception process. And this is huge. This is huge because it's cutting off ourselves from what the experience is, or what the real experience is. And this is actually something that our mind do because it saves energy, right? Like it wants to protect itself and it wants to make sure that we're safe. And the more that we do this, the more that we actually create even the stories behind our behavior. This is where things derail. There are so many biases. If you're looking at cognitive biases, you're going to see that so many of them are really based on thoughts and beliefs and learned experiences or transfer experiences. So whether it's our own experience in the past or it is from us observing other people's experience, we actually draw conclusions and we're going fast into it. And it doesn't matter what is happening in the outside of us. It really feed ourselves into that. And we're really, really going down a rabbit hole that is not serving us, because when we have learned experiences, when we have learned thoughts, beliefs, behaviors, and we actually cut off ourselves from the real environment, the real information the environment is coming at us, then we are maintaining ourselves, or we're getting cut off. And we are stunting our growth and we're stunting our evolution, because it's all very good theoretically to protect ourselves. But the truth of the matter is we cannot protect ourselves from everything. We have to learn to trust that no matter what happens, we will be okay. And I really, really am loving this, because when I started to, I was meditating, I was increasing my awareness, I was learning how to observe my emotions and how the thoughts and beliefs and patterns were they coming from? Were they mine, or were they other people's? Were they stemming from conditioning of our society, or it could be from our family? A lot of the times it is, or it was something that I have lived once or twice, that I was actually caught in a cycle of reaction. How do I step out? How when that situation that is similar one comes back, did I like the result from the previous one? And how do I make enough distance between the situation and myself so I can actually step out of the cycle. And we have to relearn all of what we actually like have been taught through this process. And it requires very much kindness towards yourself, very much compassion towards yourself, and time. But at the same time, and time is going to be it's going to be a discussion for another day, but at the same time, it's like when you start to do anything, like when you start to go surf, when you start to go to the gym, like when you start something, you start small and you actually don't judge yourself. You don't make it mean anything about where you are, what you are, or where you can go. You just put the work in and it becomes a second nature as we practice it. And as we practice it and become second nature, we realize that that second nature was actually the first nature. It was the first nature when we came into this world, but we have learned, we have been conditioned to work in another way. And when you're hearing this, I want you to think about how it lands. Because if this was not a second nature, if this was like really the way that we were meant to function in this world, there wouldn't be distortions in our being. And we observe distortions in our being when our auto-feed pattern of mind and body is not necessarily in line with what the experiences are. And we feel like there's like outliers and there's some distortions that are not really clear. And the mind is really very, very good, like, at using cognitive dissonance to quiet down those distortions. But the distortions and the forced behaviors and the forced counterfeit control and all that we actually have to put out in energy to maintain this becomes very big at some point. And when we start to change it, we actually start to really understand what we're meant to be. And we're really starting to understand how effortlessly we can really be in those experiences and trusting that we're going to be okay and trusting that we can actually have and develop the awareness, the space, the breathing, the freedom to really react in an aligned way with who we are and not in a programmed way. Now, this is actually one side of the story because the other side of the story is the soul. And it really took like me exploring that side of that connection with the experience and how I come out of my thoughts, beliefs, patterns, learned conditioning and changed the storyline by really reading what was going on outside, by really increasing my awareness, by really bringing my consciousness in the forefront and choosing a different way of being. So if you're looking at the surfing is actually the surfing is actually the best or a very good example of this, but anything that has to do with commuting with the environment in the 3D reality really teaches us that. So, but whether it's sailing, whether it's skateboarding, whether it's and especially in a fast pace, right? So this was one part. And then when I actually started to dismantle and look at the distortions and those little points that were coming through, I realized that there was not only external distortion, but there was also internal distortion. There were so many things that I came with into this world. There's so much wisdom that I came with into this world that were natural, that were actually with my soul, with myself, with my being, that was not in line with those thought, beliefs, behavior, and patterns. And I was actually told by the external pressure conditioning that this had to be quiet down. This calling was not the way that we were functioning. This was outliers. And then we learned to cut off that part too. So instead of being a unified being, mind, body, soul, within the environment that we're evolving into, we are cutting off the environment. We are cutting off our soul, and we're looping ourselves and we're really staying in that mind and just bringing this in the forefront, just bring this into the forefront of our consciousness is really liberating because we can really then choose and observe where the distortions are happening. So I was observing distortions between what I was conditioned and the environment, and I was gathering more information as like this is not true. These thoughts, beliefs, behaviors, patterns are not true, but they're not true within myself either. And this is the most damaging one. This is the one that really creates a lot of pain and suffering because we're really denying and we're quieting down that part of our being. And I'm coming today to you with a lot of clarity around this because of my experience, but also have a lot of clarity behind this because there are so many behaviors, walls that we build inside, that we section off our being, and we're always feeling like we're incomplete or misaligned or broken down because we have not learned to unify our being. We have not learned to let the freedom of our soul come through and shine through. And we're wondering why we're not happy and we're wondering why we're not joyful. And because every time we have that connection to our soul. Every time we feel love and we give love, there's always something that is telling us that's not true. But when we shift our lens and we shift our perspective, that is the truth, then we allow those internal distortions to inform us on how to dismantle the walls within and how to unify our being within. And this is why I created one. One, because we are one. We are meant to be one within ourselves, but also we are one in our human experience and we are one with the environment around us. There's a wholeness. There's a oneness that leads us to freedom, that leads us to really flowing into our life, really welcoming an effortless way of moving in this life that is free from the thoughts, the beliefs, the patterns, the behaviors that have not served us, that are conditioned, or that have served us in the past, but that no longer serve us and that we can let go so we can really embody ourselves. I think I'm going to leave it at that for today. I had more things to say to you, but I feel like this is enough information for you to sit and contemplate. I am going to invite you to, in the Voxer group after you've listened to this, to share how it lands, to share what is your experience, your lived experience with that. Where are you in this process? If there's something that is coming up in your life, I'm going to invite you to share so I can actually really guide you into that decluttering, that following what the distortions are telling you. The distortions you feel inside are just messengers. They are whispering through the noise that your being craves alignment and you updated, revealed homeostasis of your being that is effortless to maintain. In fact, you're now realizing that it hasn't been whispers through the noise. It's been screaming all along. And up until today, either the outside noise was too loud or your internal building of it was cutting off the message. As of today, the outliers that you notice in your being is your own truth peeking its light through the clutter, guiding you like stars are guiding humans since the dawn of time. They are there to show you how your being is fighting to stay where you are, is fighting for you to fit instead of really truly belonging. That deep call that you're having, that increased difficulty that you have to put forward, to ignore desires to ignite your soul, rekindle that light that's always been within, but you have forgotten until today. You're inviting to dissolve the sectioning within your being, to tear down the wall you've erected between yourself and the world. You are invited to leave the thought, the belief that it'll protect you, when in fact, it's been disconnecting you from your truth, from the reality you wish to create, for the reality that is, from the objective information, and most importantly, from the love, the joy, and the happiness that you're born to experience. Here, in this space, you're invited to strengthen, to explore, to experience in a crystal, pristine energy, a journey to reunify all of you, because it is the one that you now realize will give you the freedom you've been longing for, you've been searching for, the one that you're here to experience fully. True freedom of self, true freedom of being, true freedom of soul.
Thank you for being part of today's Re-Envision episode. As the seasons of life shift, I invite you to always connect with the truth that you hold the power to navigate your own path with courage and wisdom. Embracing change with an open heart is central, for within lies the potential for remarkable growth and evolution. If you know someone who would benefit from this conversation, I'd be honored, truly honored, if you shared it with them and spread the love. If this podcast has resonated with you, please subscribe on your favorite platform, leave a heartfelt review, and share it in your network. You can stay connected with me on social media at ME Lifestyle Design, where I continue to share insights and inspiration. Until our next encounter, remember to re-envision your life with love, alignment, and purpose. Keep cultivating your curiosity, finding joy, magic, and freedom as often as you can. Now, today, and tomorrow. I love you. I see you. I feel you.